A woman found a real monster's egg and hid it in her basement. But she had no idea it was a trap, and she would pay dearly for her foolish mistake. We see a terrified girl, stained with something red. A horrifying monster prowls around her. She uses a lighter to avoid being plunged into total darkness. But soon, the monster finds her. Let's rewind a bit. Marine biologist Olive Crown records a video message for Dr. Fletcher. She has learned that the scientist is developing specialized suits for maximum depth dives and wants to test one of them. Fletcher agrees, and Olive takes part in the first stage of testing. Using a special mechanism, she is lowered to a depth of 1,500 feet. The visibility is poor, requiring additional light sources. Olive spots a massive creature with long tentacles in the water. It resembles a gigantic octopus. Soon, this horrifying monster attacks her. The woman is immediately lifted back to the surface. Olive notices cracks on her suit and realizes that even this protective armor wouldn't have saved her from the creature. The woman doesn't tell anyone what she saw in the depths of the ocean, not even her colleague Dara. She changes clothes and heads to her cabin, where Dr. Fletcher is already waiting. Yet even he can't find out what happened during the dive. Fletcher is furious and immediately fires Olive. The protagonist examines her damaged diving suit. It's stained with a dark liquid, resembling squid ink. The liquid covers a strange egg. It's quite large. The woman hides it in her toolbox and doesn't tell anyone about her discovery. A few days later, their ship reaches the nearest port, and Olive returns home. She greets her neighbor and opens the door. Her boyfriend Matthew is waiting for her at home. He is a doctor and has to rush off for an urgent call. Olive goes down to her basement and tidies it up. She arranges her research tools, cleans the aquarium, hangs her diplomas and photos on the wall, and then opens her toolbox. The woman takes out the mysterious egg and examines it carefully. She doesn't even tell her boyfriend about it. Olive and Matthew spend a romantic evening together. The man is not happy with her constant trips, and Olive promises to spend more time at home. Morning comes. Matt leaves for work again, and Olive goes down to the basement. She notices the egg has cracked, and there is no one inside. The mysterious creature has not only hatched, but already escaped. Following a sticky black trail, Olive finds the monster, but it immediately attacks her. Olive's eyes turn completely black, then gradually return to their normal color. The woman stands up, switches off the lamp, traps the monster with a large box, and places it in the aquarium. Hearing Matt's footsteps, she quickly hides her new pet. Olive and Matt go out for a romantic dinner. The woman realizes that the bright lights irritate her. At the restaurant, she devours her food greedily and drinks a lot of beverages. Soon she starts to vomit up something black. Olive feels utterly exhausted. The next day, the protagonist goes back down to the basement, puts on protective goggles and thick gloves, and lifts the aquarium lid. Thick smoke rises from it. Olive picks up the monster and examines it closely. The woman shows her discovery to her best friend and colleague, Dara. The man says it's a prehistoric creature. It even has gills. Olive insists that Dara keep everything a secret. He agrees, but reminds his friend that this monster needs to be fed. The protagonist realizes she can't stay in bright sunlight. She takes a bath and submerges herself completely. Something black appears in the water again. Olive tries to recall what happened during her deep-sea dive. She gathers various seafood and attempts to feed the mysterious monster. Unfortunately, the creature refuses any food offered to it. Then Olive takes a knife and offers the strange squid a few drops of her own blood. It seems to show some interest. Olive spends time with Matt and her younger sister Ellie. Ellie is much more outgoing and attractive than Olive, which sparks jealousy in the main character toward her sister for Matt's attention. Night falls. Olive can't sleep. She goes downstairs and feeds her pet with her own blood. In the morning, Ellie accidentally cuts her finger, and at that moment, Olive begins to experience hallucinations. Dr. Fletcher calls the protagonist and demands that she return what she stole from him. It turns out, Dara told him everything. The professor gives her an hour to deliver the creature she found to his laboratory. Olive argues with Matt and Ellie, then rushes down to the basement. She looks at the monster and gives a sly smile. The main character heads to the meat section of a large supermarket, buys some raw meat, and offers it to her pet. However, the monster refuses to eat it. Fletcher sneaks up behind Olive. He pushes the woman to the floor and lifts the aquarium lid, taking the mysterious creature into his hands. Olive knocks him out with a small statue. When the scientist regains consciousness, she directs her pet to have a proper meal. The monster immediately obeys. Olive goes to the bathroom to change and wash off the red stains. She cries, realizing she has committed a crime, but at the same time understands she had no other choice. The protagonist treats the creature as if it were her own baby. Late at night, she drives to a riverbank and throws several bags into the water. Those are the remains of her former employer. Olive disposes of the evidence and secretly sneaks onto Fletcher's ship. Using his keys, she opens a safe containing confidential research files. Thus, she discovers that the professor had been studying a prehistoric life form living at the bottom of the ocean for a long time. That's why he offered Olive to dive to maximum depth at that exact location. The scientist knew she might find something extraordinary. Ellie visits Olive and Matt again. She openly flirts with Matt, and he clearly enjoys the attention. Ellie goes down to the basement to look for Olive and discovers the aquarium, but now it's empty. What's even worse, someone is watching her from the shadows. Olive shows up and drives her sister away, just in time. The creature was already getting dangerously close. The protagonist calms the monster down and installs a new lock on the basement door. Over dinner, Matt attempts to discuss their relationship with Olive, but the woman reacts with total indifference. The only thing that interests her is Matt's story about an elderly patient who suddenly stopped speaking. The next day, Olive goes to Matt's workplace. Using his access card, she sneaks into that same elderly woman's ward and kidnaps her. Matt spots Olive in the parking lot. She lies, saying he forgot his card at home, hands it to him, and immediately drives away. Olive brings the poor woman down to the basement and offers her to the creature as food. Unbelievable. Olive cleans up the evidence of her crime, then looks down at her fingers with curiosity and begins to lick them. She recalls that instead of screaming during her encounter with the monster deep underwater, she smiled. Olive meets with Dara. The man apologizes for telling Dr. Fletcher her secret. Olive leads her friend into the basement and shows him the creature. It has grown significantly. As you can guess, Dara becomes its next meal. Ellie visits her sister again. Olive stares at her with an unsettling interest, as if the girl is the most delicious dish on the table. Matt tells Ellie that one of his patients has gone missing from the hospital, and now he may lose his job. Ellie gets ready to leave town and writes a farewell note to her sister. Matt admits that he has already been fired. Olive feeds her pet and laughs excitedly. The protagonist goes upstairs and sees Matt cheating on her with Ellie. The woman knocks her unfaithful boyfriend unconscious and drags her sister downstairs by the hair. In the basement, she ties Ellie to a radiator and leaves. Ellie desperately tries to break free, unaware that the monster is watching her with great curiosity. The girl accidentally cuts her toe and a few drops of blood fall to the floor. She wraps her foot with a piece of cloth and keeps struggling to escape. Ellie notices the creature beside her. A terrified scream echoes through the basement. Olive's eyes turn pitch black once again. Matt regains consciousness and slowly gets back on his feet. He finds Olive and demands to know what she's done to her sister. The protagonist replies that her boyfriend never loved her. He loved Ellie, and then pushes Matt into the basement. The monster attacks him immediately. Ellie witnesses everything and bursts into tears. Olive locks the basement door, goes upstairs, sits down in an armchair, and smiles like a lunatic. She truly looks unhinged. Papers and sketches of the prehistoric creature are scattered all over the floor. Ellie keeps fighting for her life. She pounds on the walls, hoping someone will hear her. Olive comes down to the basement and orders her sister to keep quiet. Even worse, the main character calls the monster a god whom she can control. Olive proudly declares that she is now the mother of the oldest creature on Earth. Ellie is convinced her sister has lost her mind. Olive shows her sister a new egg. It turns out her pet has already begun to reproduce. The main character tells Ellie she should become a mother to the newborn. After all, soon these beings will take over the world. Olive then reveals her tamed monster. Suddenly, it slips out of her control and attacks its owner. Ellie manages to snatch the keys from Olive and break free. We return to the scene from the beginning of the film. Ellie is sitting on the floor, using a lighter to keep the monster away. It prowls around her, destroying everything in its path. Olive's neighbor enters the house. Ellie begs the man for help, but at that moment, the monster attacks. The old man switches on his flashlight, and the monster flees. Ellie is saved. Police officers and forensic experts examine the crime scene. They go through the documents and sketches and interrogate Ellie. Unfortunately, the creature itself is nowhere to be found. It seems to have escaped through the sewer. Some time passes. Ellie is now undergoing treatment in a psychiatric hospital. The news reports that the local river level is rapidly rising. Many nearby houses are at risk of flooding. More and more fish torn apart by an unknown predator are found in the water. Ellie trembles with fear. She gets into her car and drives to the shore. The girl runs toward the water and stares anxiously into the distance. Meanwhile, a child on the beach discovers a strange egg, and then it becomes clear there are hundreds of them. Soon the shells begin to crack,